You're live.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the 62nd week of the Free Assange Online Vigil. This is day 3 of the hearings, and we are live here in Washington, D.C. It is day 3,563 since the illegal and arbitrary detention of the WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has started. It is 517 days since the WikiLeaks...
Sorry.
I thought it was me for a minute.
It's 517 days since the WikiLeaks founder was trafficked out of the Ecuadorian embassy to Belmarsh prison following a $4.2 billion international monetary loan fund to the nation of Ecuador. Julian Assange was rearrested Monday, September 7th, 2020, under the new superseding indictment issued by Bill Barr's Justice Department on June 24th, 2020. This is the third day of the second phase of Julian Assange's extraordinary rendition hearing. It is day 1,195 of the federal incarceration for Reality Winner. And the good news, it is day 176 that Chelsea Manning has been free, and she does stream on Twitch Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. I believe it's 7 to 11 Eastern, something around those times. So please hop over there and give her some support and show her some love. I'm joined by Steve and Kendra.
Hi. In stereo.
Yeah.
So I think we'll just jump right into a quick summary of what happened before day 3. Day 1, there were, first of all, Julian Assange was immediately rearrested and charged under the third superseding indictment as soon as he made an appearance in court. What this does is expands the charges on the conspiracy to commit computer intrusion. It doesn't add any new charges under the Espionage Act, but it makes it allowable for them to now go in and pull testimony from 2010, 2011, and 2012 and try to apply that to this hearing. The superseding indictment, if you remember, wasn't delivered to the court until 2 days after Julian's legal team had submitted the skeleton arguments for their defense. So it was a little like 11th hour shady bullshit on the part of the Department of Justice, which is something we're flat out used to. Immediately following the rearrest, there were tech glitches all over the place. On top of organizations like Reporters Without Borders and Amnesty International no longer being provided access to the cloud video feed,
as well as 38 other organizations or politicians.
Yeah.
There was about 40. Yeah. There was about 40 groups in the UK between the NGO organizations and the parliamentarians that were viewing the hearing, that Judge Barrister specifically said that she wanted out, that she did not give approval for them to be in the observation area and that they are not allowed to view this video.
And I think it was just not working, right?
No,
they had been connected.
No, what? They were removed. There were tech difficulties with the first witness. And on top of them saying, oh no, you're not going to be allowed to summarize, on top of the prosecution giving the defense or the witnesses like 24 hours or less before they testify up to 350 pages of material for them to go through and prepare for the cross-examination, which is absolutely ridiculous. So it has just been one shitstorm after another on this thing.
WikiLeaks, the defense filed a motion after that rearrest to adjourn court so that way the new evidence could be essentially sifted through, entered, and at that point the court said no, that the trials are proceeding. If you wanted to delay the trial, you would have had to have done it back about a month-ish ago.
August 12th, I think was the last time.
Yep. And with the technical difficulties, it actually delayed Feldstein's ability to testify to the next day. So what we did is, as the Action for Assange community, we were at least cited as the reason by Her Majesty's courts as to why they allowed the cloud video platform to begin with. So we included a new call to action to open the cloud video platform for NGOs, but also to ensure proper technical facilitation. And what we're going to do is, if they continue to fail at this, we're going to try to find better ways to step up the pressure campaign, because it's something that there shouldn't be delays based on technical difficulties by a government that has an immense amount of resources. If we,
or a GCHQ, for
Right.
that matter.
Well, and I think that's, I mean, one of the things that Rebecca Vincent has said, I mean, and she's with Reporters Without Borders, is this is the worst. This is the most difficult she's ever had accessing any case anywhere.
She
Ever.
told us
So that's,
On
that's a really
Saturday.
big deal. It's a powerful statement.
She told us on Saturday that watching Turkish criminal court proceedings was easier and more accessible to her at Reporters Without Borders than this hearing at the Old Bailey in merry old England.
and she is polite enough to say that maybe a first world Western nation just hasn't had to deal with Reporters Without Borders, and the judge doesn't know. So I think that is a very nice answer, but I think what they're trying to do is just limit people's ability to view this.
Kristen Hampson said it may as well be a secret trial.
And it really is one of those cases that we want to hear about. You know, I mean, the people who are reporting on it are doing such an excellent job, but there's certain things that you want to hear for yourself. And I think that's a disservice to the public in general.
And then into day two, when Feldstein got to wrap his testimony up, Feldstein came in the second half of the day, but it was continuing the testimony that the court had failed to allow in the first day of the hearings. And it more or less just circled around how this is unprecedented, how there's never been a reporter charged with espionage before, and how the political offense, if you break it down nitty gritty, there's literally no legal precedent to even allow this. That this is the first time in history this is being done. The defense in and of themselves basically tried to just say that Feldstein was biased in that wrap up of that second date for Feldstein. And then we had the Clyde Stafford Smith testimony in day two, which he was an attorney that worked with some victims from Guantanamo Bay, and he was basically testifying on the nature of how important information like that is for justice, essentially. That he would have liked to have been able to introduce documentation like that. And the prosecution, I believe, argued that documentation of torture should be private because people would get mad if they found out that they were torturing people. That was literally the argument that was made by the prosecution in court as to why that information should be behind those kinds of barriers.
So let's go ahead and get to day three. We encourage you guys to do this too. Follow Kevin Gastola's live tweets of this. Follow the Mary Kospakidis' account, Mohammed Almazi, Stefania Maruzzi. There are people who are doing some wonderful in the moment coverage of this. And starting tomorrow, because we hate ourselves, we're going to get up around 4:30ish, slam some caffeine, and start live streaming. We're going to be live streaming all of the information that we're getting from the live tweets, and we're going to provide some commentary and some analysis throughout. So especially if you're part of our overseas international audience and you want someplace to hang out during this that actually is giving you, updates on what's going on as well as some breakdowns of it, come hang out. I don't know if we're going to be able to do this every day, but we're going to do this as often as we can. So on to day 3, and if you could pull up, please, Josh, Moe's article. You want to take this, Kendra?
Sure. So this is an article by Mohammed Al-Mazi. Charges against Julian Assange are unconstitutional and threaten press freedom, expert tells court. It is immaterial whether one considers Julian Assange to be a reporter because he was engaged in journalistic activity when obtaining and publishing classified U.S. documents. The director of the Freedom of the Press Foundation told the court on day 3 of the WikiLeaks publisher's extradition hearing. The U.S. indictment against WikiLeaks publisher Julian Assange represents an unconstitutional threat to the First Amendment of the United States Constitution and to press freedom more generally, Professor Trevor Tim told Phil Daly on Wednesday. Professor Tim, co-founder and director of Freedom of the Press Foundation, testified as a defense expert via video link during the second half of the 3rd day of Assange's substantive extradition hearings. My position is that this indictment is clearly unconstitutional, Professor Tim told Mark Summers, QC, for the defense. He added that WikiLeaks has a First Amendment right to expose corruption and illegality. The professor gave numerous examples of how seeking to obtain classified documents, working with government leakers, and publishing classified documents is a regular practice engaged in by investigative reporters, activities which successive court could consider to be constitutionally protected. And that makes me think of even the TMC case, dismissed with prejudice and was ruled that WikiLeaks would act in
We can barely hear Kendra.
Oh. Sorry.
You're too quiet.
Okay. Somebody else want to read a little bit?
So he also rebukes the argument posed within the U.S. indictment against Mr. Assange that advertising a secure drop for potential leakers to confidentially pass on classified documents was an activity which should be criminalized. I myself have advocated for leaks in cases where the U.S. secrecy system is hiding abuse. That's fine. Okay. We're gonna mic up real fast. It should only take a second. I apologize about the rain.
Yeah.
I tried to turn it off. It didn't work.
Right.
Here, hold that. We're actually probably going to have to pass it.
It might not if you put it in the middle. It might work if you put it in the middle.
Oh,
Let me.
gotta switch it.
Yeah, that cleaned up the white noise considerably.
All right. So back to the magic. And we're going to go through this whole tweet thread that Kevin has, but what's up on the screen right now is, Tim said the indictment makes it seem like having a submission system where whistleblowers can send documents is some malicious anomaly, or the fact that WikiLeaks was asking potential sources for information is criminal. Freedom of the Press Foundation, where Tim is executive director, built a tool called SecureDrop, an open source version of a whistleblower submission system. He told the court today that it is used by over 80 news organizations, The Guardian, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, etc. And that's absolutely true. If you go to any of these news outlets' websites right now, or the Washington Post, or Salon, or Politico, they all have a way for you to communicate to them securely if you're a whistleblower. So to pretend that this is somehow out of character for a publishing outlet is just 100% crap. When asked by Mr. Summers whether it was even ever suggested to him that this was criminal activity on your part, Trim responded in the negative, adding that it is consensus opinion among legal experts that such activity is protected under the First Amendment. Professor Tim also added that news organizations have even taken out advertisements to tell whistleblowers about their system, such as ads in Gizmodo. Uh, James Lewis, QC, cross-examining for the U.S. government, challenged Mr. Tim's evidence, saying he was not an impartial and unbiased expert because he failed to mention in his report the fact that U.S. prosecutors have submitted statements making clear that they don't think Assange is a journalist and that they were not prosecuting him for politically motivated purposes. When asked to respond to these assertions by the prosecutor, Professor Tim replied, "I based my opinions in this case not by reading a Department of Justice press release, but by reading the actual indictment." This was not the only zinger that Professor Tim got in today. And we'll get into that when we go into Kevin's tweet thread. I skipped a bit. Mr. Lewis also argued the position asserted by the U.S. government is that the charge is only related to documents which allegedly endangered U.S. government sources and informants. Again, reminding you that in Chelsea Manning's court-martial that covers the exact same leaks that this trial is trying to broad daylight kidnap extraordinary rendition Julian Assange over, came out in that court-martial that no one came to any harm as a result of these leaks. So that in and of itself is just another really spurious suggestion on the part of the U.S. State Department. Professor Tim also rebutted those assertions, arguing that there are several charges in the indictment that deal with the mere fact that WikiLeaks had in its possession classified U.S. documents. Some of the charges relate to specific documents, he said, while others relate to all the documents published by WikiLeaks during the period in question. When it was put to Mr. Tim by Mr. Lewis that no responsible journalist, or indeed no journalist at all, would endanger U.S. government's informants unnecessarily, the professor responded by saying that question is whether or not to use the acts in question are illegal. The question is whether or not the acts in question are illegal, not whether we agree with a particular editorial decision. Professor Tim emphasized the fact that no court has ever said that the publication of names in this matter would be illegal, adding that the U.S. Congress debated criminalizing the publication of some sources in a law which was proposed specifically at making it a crime to punish the publication of so-called human intelligence failed. This showed it wasn't already illegal in the eyes of Congress, and it decided that it wouldn't be worth it to make it so. The First Amendment is not a balancing act. It is possible in some types of speech harm might result. But in the U.S., our people have made the determination that having the free flow of information makes it vital that they are protected from prosecution even when it comes close to a line or particular subject matter that some of us may find uncomfortable. You want to jump back in?
Sure.
Where? You don't have to put it right, like there.
You want me to read those tweets here?
Sure.
This is a tweet from Mo. Comes close to a line or a particular subject matter that some of us may find uncomfortable. This is not me saying that I would have made the same decision. Editorial judgment should not be made by the government. So back to the article. When asked by Mr. Lewis why his opinion should be preferred over the opinion of the courts of the U.S., he responded by saying that his opinion was in line with previous court opinions. That's great. Mm-hmm. A key argument made by the U.S. government is that Assange is not a journalist. But the professor made clear that under the U.S. Constitution, it is the activity which is protected, irrespective of whether an individual is officially recognized as a journalist by the state. Earlier in the day, political scientist Professor Paul Rogers explained why he believed the prosecution against Assange was politically motivated. Under the terms of the Anglo-U.S. extradition treaty, political offenses cannot result in extradition. The defense argued during the hearings in February. The hearings are expected to last for at least 3 weeks, during which time Sputnik shall continue to report on them.
So let's go ahead and pull up that day 3 thread from the good Kevin, because there's some great shit in here. Starting with like the one is so tragic that this is good news, that this is like a positive that we're seeing in this show trial. We're now starting 30 minutes later for the rest of the extradition hearing, so Julian can meet in person with his legal team each day. The Crown deigned to give them 30 minutes. Let's jump down to here. Clive Stafford Smith's testimony on day 2 specifically detailed how U.S. diplomatic cables published by WikiLeaks helped to convince a court in Pakistan that CIA drone strikes violated human rights and were war crimes. Not only did WikiLeaks expose evidence of U.S. torture and war crimes, but the media organization also published documents showing how U.S. officials obstruct investigations into these acts. Let's see. The first witness will be Paul Rogers, emeritus professor of peace studies at Bradford. And the point of calling him was to show that Julian Assange was being targeted for political purposes. Somebody wants to pick this up.
Yeah.
We definitely don't have to go through each one.
Okay. Rogers said quite clear he is someone who has strong political views. Assange's opinions have resulted in a clash with the U.S. administration, including the present administration, who has moved to prosecute. Rogers said the U.S. gave firm impressions that Afghanistan was under control. Some evidence existed that was not true. Evidence published by WikiLeaks confirmed success was clearly not the case. Rogers said the WikiLeaks publications on Iraq confirmed very strongly what had happened or what had been apparent to some.
And let's note, like Afghanistan, almost a decade before the Washington started, the recent out.
Yeah.
It was already exposed by
Right,
WikiLeaks,
which was a decade after the war had already started. Yeah, because what people don't really think about is the context of time. Like most people can't imagine what it was like in 2010 when this information was coming out in real time, and that's one of the hardest things is
to bring people back there.
Right.
Yep.
Rogers emphasized that the Iraq war logs enabled a proper appreciation for civilian deaths. The Iraq body count did good work through the indictment reports or incident reports found with an additional 15,000 civilian deaths. In talking about Assange's political views, Rogers referred to his involvement in the WikiLeaks party in Australia in 2012. Views are focused on transparency and accountability. Libertarian, not limited to government, but also includes corporations, trade unions, and non-governmental organizations. Rogers referred to Mike Pompeo, Jeff Sessions, and Bill Barr in the Trump administration and said that the Trump admin's hostility towards Assange stems from their focus on what they perceive as fake news. They view Assange and WikiLeaks as a threat to their normal political endeavors.
Right.
And that's
the point.
Yes.
Rogers consistently emphasized the political shift that has taken place in the White House, which led to pursuing charges. Trump believes he is beset by threats from the press, including the networked Fourth Estate, which WikiLeaks is a part of. James Lewis did cross-examine for prosecution. He challenged Rogers' concept of what constitutes political opinion. He attempted to scrutinize statements Assange has made on transparency, but Rogers easily demonstrated how they were political. And this is a quote from Julian that I believe was used in court. The more secretive or unjust an organization is, the more leaks include fear and paranoia in its leadership and planning coterie. Since unjust systems, by their nature, include opponents, mass leaking
Induce opponents.
Mass leaking leaves them vulnerable to those who seek to replace them with more open forums of governance.
So I wanna kind of, oh god damn it, I want to kind of jump down a little bit. Uh,
One thing that was great about Roger's testimony, though, is we really, we saw him push back on that style of
Yes.
questioning from the prosecution and really stick to his last his point.
So yeah, this exchange particularly, the QC Lewis, have you seen evidence indicting Mr. Assange? Rogers replied that he's tried to go over material, but it's voluminous. Lewis repeated the question and said no, Rogers hadn't, because grand jury evidence remains under seal. So he was trying to be like, gotcha!
Yeah.
Rogers clarified that, of course, he had not seen evidence the United States is reserving for its own hearing, and that he didn't know how strong the evidence is, but who does, because it isn't public. Rogers attempted, though futilely, to make it clear his expert opinion was based on public information related to the case, and it is critically important to focus on change in politics in the United States. Lewis uses Assistant U.S. Attorney Gordon Kronberg's statements to insist federal prosecutors are required to act in a manner free of political motivation. Rogers replied that's true in theory, but a large portion of officials in the U.S. government from the political center can influence Assange. That doesn't really make sense. That was hard to read. Let's scroll down to where the second part of the hearing is. Is that what that was?
Yeah, go back.
Okay. Well, god damn it, I can't now. It was an in drop. Okay.
It's touchscreen, by the way.
Okay. So one of my favorite moments in today's hearing is coming up. But to reiterate this point, because it's absolutely insane, the prosecution is giving defense witnesses 350-page plus bundles 24 hours before they testify, and they're expressing disbelief when they aren't familiar with the contents. This is like a package that both the defense and the prosecution give to the witness so they can study up and prepare on what they're going to be questioned about. That's just punishing.
It's laughable. It's entered to the absurd.
Yeah.
Lewis asked Tim if he feels threatened by prosecution. Tim said, not me personally, but he works on behalf of journalists and their work is under threat. Lewis said, but you tweeted a request for government employees to leak CIA torture report. Tim replied, yeah, I believe that it's protected speech under the Constitution, but anybody who says that may find themselves under criminal liability if the prosecution of Julian Assange succeeds. And Lewis says, you appear to have an interest in the outcome. Tim said most press freedom advocates fear that prosecution will lead to prosecution of other full-time reporters. I'm testifying on this case for that reason. Lewis says the position of the prosecution in this case is that Julian Assange is not a journalist, and that's something they're always going to come back. Professor Tim says, I understand that. It doesn't matter whether U.S. government considers Assange a journalist. The New York Times and other outlets don't need issues press pass to have First Amendment rights. Jump down.
I got no idea where you're at in this thread now.
Okay. That's all right. I mean, we have the thread linked in the chat, right?
Yes.
I'm just gonna keep going.
Yeah. Lewis, and I'm just jumping down. I'm jumping all over the place. So Lewis asked Professor Tim, you say this is a war on journalism. Do you stand by that? And Professor Tim says, I'm very glad you brought that up. You went on to outline how Trump has called the press enemies of the people and disparaged them over 2,200 times, particularly with his Twitter account, in one spectacular moment. Tim was asked by Lewis, like previous witnesses, about statements from AUSA Kronberg in EDV, Eastern District of Virginia. He said he didn't think it was accurate to suggest Assange isn't being criminalized for passively receiving classified information. Lewis, you said decision to indict was part of a war on journalism. Wouldn't federal rules of prosecution be contrary to that? And this, friends and neighbors, is my favorite moment of the hearing so far. Professor Tim says, yes, absolutely. That's why I'm stating that I don't think this prosecution should go forward.
Wonderful.
I agree with you.
Mhm.
That's why this is a charade. So Kevin concludes by saying both Tim and Rogers were very strong defensive witnesses, especially because they were able to handle the lines of questioning from prosecutor James Lewis and not fall into any traps. That's about it for that. It's about as updated as we can get you. Again, we are going to be providing live analysis of the coverage of this hearing as it happens. So definitely look for that. And Josh, were you ever able to grab the photos from today's thing off of our Twitter feed?
No, I was sleeping.
One thing real quick before we do wrap up is I would say that that's not a little bit speculation, but that's also a sign of the defense preparing the witnesses even a little bit better for what they might get.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And so we have multiple call to actions up on the website. We are working with Reporters Without Borders to contact congressional candidates and, congressional candidates as well as congressional seat holders, and more or less ask them to make an amendment to the Espionage Act that will allow for public interest defense as well as disallow the prosecution of journalists and whistleblowers. Along with that, it is to create a national dialogue around how we've reached the point where the press can be attacked so deeply that Julian can face all of these charges under the Espionage Act. So please look that up. That is on actionforassange.com. We also have what we were calling the second warning to make sure that these trials are broadcast properly. We do want to demand that NGOs get actually to view this, but if you want to go a step further, start demanding that we actually get to view these trials ourselves, that they make a live link available. If we can figure out how to do it from a front porch with cell phones and a 50-foot Ethernet cable, I'm pretty sure the courts can find a way to get this broadcast somewhere. So that is going to be tomorrow's call to action. Today's call to action that we're putting out is essentially continuing week 60s, which is pressuring the Department of Justice. So if you could, please hop on our website. All three of those are up there. We will be updating the second warning to demanding an actual in-person feed for us. That's cool.
Yeah. We just got to thank you for Mama Assange.
Yeah, our action today was really
Outside the British Embassy. Do you want to talk about that for a
Yeah,
little
I
bit?
think-
Yes,
should
let
try
me
that.
let me try and get out of camera, but still pull it up.
I've got the Twitter's thing you sent.
Okay. Well, then I'll just stand out of camera for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, no, today we went to the UK embassy.
Mhm.
We were there from noon to, I'd say, about 4.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep,
Yeah.
we left right at 4.
So, first we played the panel, so maybe you talk about the panel.
Mhm. So, Steve, in coordination with Popular Resistance, was able to organize a panel with Daniel Ellsberg and
Oh, and Jacob Goodell and Chris Hedges.
yes, and they did a Q&A specifically for journalists.
And by the way, this is like the last thing Kevin Zeese did before he passed away. It was what he was working on, which really threw a wrench into all of the operations. And they had to switch moderators at the last minute because Abby Martin backed out after the minute. Yeah.
But the panel was great.
It was.
Yeah, the panel, they had a great discussion.
We will be putting it up on Action for Assange. We just have to get the video from them to actually put up on there because all of the guests in attendance were on a webinar essentially. There was journalists from around the world that got to hop in this webinar to be able to ask questions themselves. And I felt like it was really, really informative. And I want to be really excited to actually put it out there for you guys to listen to.
I missed the webinar because I was doing yellow ribbons. We've been doing that around all of our actions to join in with the global action for that. So we did that around the embassy. And then I'd say, what was it about? Right at tea time.
Yes.
Yeah, right at 3 o'clock.
Yes. We started, out there with our signs and really rallying and chanting, yelling,
Screaming
free
into the
Assange,
world's loudest
and,
megaphone.
extradite Assange, and it was great. We
The
had
British
a lot
complained.
of comments.
Yes.
We had a lot of support. I mean, it was surprising.
We were several
Wow.
hundred feet
Yep.
from the actual embassy building,
Mhm.
and the people inside complained about the noise.
Yep.
And to their credit, the Secret Service cops that were out there told them, well, yeah, it's a protest. They're going to make noise.
That's why
But
they're
we got
here.
some honks of people coming outside of the embassy too, and those
Yeah.
were great. Those
Because
were
it-
ones we were really happy about. It shows the support.
If you don't know, because I barely knew the landscape of DC, the British Embassy actually sits right underneath a really large military base. I don't know what the name of it is. So it was almost like a joint action where we got to educate whoever the hell was on that base as well as the people inside about Julian. Because one of the things that we like to do when we go to these events is also play other documentaries too. Like as we're getting set up, the first thing we do is start with Juan Passarelli's documentary or the teach-in series that we have or some speeches that Julian's gave. So it's something that being able to get a base level of information out to someone for half an hour on that projector or on that megaphone is really awesome. So I just want to say thank you for everyone that has donated and helped out with this campaign.
It made a big difference.
Yes.
Yes.
We
During that action, in the middle of the action, we got a $1,000 donation
from Anonymous. Yeah.
Thank you, Anonymous.
Yeah.
Well, thank you,
That's a great
Anonymous.
donation.
We truly appreciate that. We do still have our GoFundMe open. We are here. Basically, we're covering gas, food, additional supplies. Like we have to pick up more helium tanks. We'll probably need more balloons. And then as we grow throughout this, if we continue to get donations throughout this time and it's far exceeding what we are actually going to use, at the end of all this, we're going to be donating to Julian's legal team, to other activist organizations like Wise Up Action, Defend.WikiLeaks, and WikiLeaks directly. So it's something that give if you can. If not, please donate to one of these other organizations because it may be where the money ends up going anyways, depending on what we actually need here on site still additionally. So I just want to thank everybody because this is something greater than I think we can even realize the impact that we're making at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'll just kick the camera around a little bit and raise some serious hell.
If you have any questions, please drop them in chat. We had an interesting guest on last night. It was Mike Billington. I want to thank him for joining us. We were operating on really short notice, and I would like to thank Misty for joining us then too. And we will coordinate with Mike to get him on for a longer discussion because that was a topic that's definitely worth visiting some more.
There was a lot of shit I would have liked to say.
Yes.
Right.
We'll continue that. Yes.
We're going to pick that back up for sure. Let's see. There was a question in my chat about whether or not the quote-unquote condom couch was covering any of this. I talked to Fee this morning. We're probably going to be on tomorrow around 3 p.m. Pacific time. So hopefully that answers your question. But they did. They covered opening day. From what I understand, I haven't been able to watch shit. Like we watched the daily wrap-ups of what happened so that we can talk to you guys about it. And
that's partly why we're doing the morning live streams going through court as close as possible to live, is because that's pretty much the only way that we're going to be able to stay up to date on it going into the next action.
So yeah,
Mhm.
that'll probably do it here from Washington D.C. Yeah, again, I'm gonna echo what Andrew said. Thank you guys so much, because there is no way we could have pulled off any of this without you. Like you guys who have participated in the crowdfunding, you're as much a part of this as we are, and we fucking love you for that.
And any chance I get to interrupt tea time is a win.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
So thank you for helping us interrupt tea time,
Yep.
among many, many, many other things.
Yes. You can find us on Twitter at action_4 Assange. Please check out the call to actions again, just at action4Assange.com. You can find me on Twitter at Andrew Zigman. And again, just thank you to everybody that made this possible.
And I'm Kendra Christian, and you can find me on Twitter at devs13, or you can find Denver Free Assange at DNB Free JA. And great to see everybody, and see you tomorrow.
I'm Steve. You guys know me. You know what I do. If you're not already subscribed to Slow News Day, please go ahead and do that. I can't guarantee you that clicking the bell is going to get you a notification, but what the fuck? Give it a shot. I don't have a show scheduled for Sunday yet, but if and when I do, I'll let you know. Otherwise, we'll probably just sit around and I'll do an AMA or something like that. At any rate, yeah, thank you. Good luck to us all.